In this session, you will learn how to use AI to make sourcing faster and smarter, from improving supplier selection to reducing your risks. Our guest today is Megla Bardwaj, and before we go to her session, let's have Augustus introducing the sponsors of Sellerfest Online.
Thank you, Lisette. So let me introduce the sponsors of this session. The first one is VAA Philippines, provides trained e-commerce virtual assistants for Amazon, Walmart, and other e-commerce sellers. Exit.io, it's a platform for Amazon FBA buyers, sellers, and investors. Ecomc, it's your global Amazon, Walmart, and TikTok growth expert. Optimal AI by Sellerplex is your Amazon advertising analyst. VATAi is an international compliance for e-commerce sellers. They provide VAT compliance, EPR services, and much more. MerchJar is your AI copilot for Amazon advertising. And last but not least, DataHawk. It's an enterprise-grade analytics for Amazon and Walmart sellers.
Perfect. So now let's bring in Megla. Welcome to the show, Megla. Thank you very much for being here with us today to teach us about how to source from India.
Thank you so much, Lisette. Really nice being back with Sellerfest and looking forward to the session.
Perfect. So Megla, before we start with your presentation, could you first give us a brief overview of your background and why we invited you to talk about how to source from India?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisette. So I've been in the sourcing industry for over 20 years now. I started working in India, then I was in the Philippines. I worked in China for 10 years, Singapore. And for the last 3 years, I've been in India, really focused on helping global Amazon e-commerce sellers and all types of importers source products from India. And in today's session, I will be talking about how we are using AI to, source more efficiently overall, and of course, specifically with a specific focus on India. So yeah, looking forward to the session.
Cool, very nice. So while Megla is getting ready to present, I just wanted to quickly say that if you're watching us live right now, definitely use your chance to ask questions from Megla about sourcing in general and also about sourcing from India by leaving your question to the chat. And once she finishes presenting, then she's going to answer all of those questions. Also, if you like this video and learned something new, hit the like button under the video to show support. And if you're not yet a subscriber of Orange Klik YouTube channel, definitely subscribe as well to see similar videos in the future that will help you to run your Amazon business better. And Megla, I think you're now ready, so let's bring in your slides as well, and then we are ready to learn from you.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisette. Okay, so I will be talking about how we can use AI to unlock efficiency in sourcing. And a lot of these aspects like we ourselves are using in our business as we are sourcing products for different importers globally. So what are the topics that we're going to be covering? First of all, what are some of the challenges that generally importers face in sourcing? And then how AI can help with every step of the sourcing cycle, right from the beginning to the end. And then how to get started and what are some of the pitfalls that you should avoid. So I won't go through this. I've already given a bit of my background. So let's dive right in. Challenges in sourcing. Now, if you've been in the sourcing or if you've been sourcing products for, even 6 months, you will realize that there are a lot of, difficulties that you face. First of all, finding suppliers is kind of the biggest challenge. There's so much information on directories like Alibaba. If you do a Google search, there's just so much information. You really can't tell which company is a manufacturer, which company is a trading company, which company has, is the right company for your specific products, what capabilities they have, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like an endless loop to find, suppliers. A lot of times it's a hit or a miss. There's also a lot of manual price and trend analysis, like even for searching for products that will sell well on specific platforms. There's a lot of manual analysis that needs to be done, and AI helps resolve some of those issues as well. There are also a lot of repetitive tasks and a lot of templates that are used in sourcing. For example, there's the purchase invoice, and there's a specifications sheet. And so there are a lot of templates that are used that can also be facilitated and streamlined by using AI. Also, sourcing is very time consuming, it's labor intensive. So that's why AI is really good for helping efficiency and helping specifically with the operations part of sourcing. AI really helps with that. I still feel that it is extremely essential to have some sort of a personal relationship with your supplier, regardless of where you're sourcing from, whether it's India, China, any country. That personal relationship is still important. It's also very important to have on the ground support where somebody can actually go to the factory and see the products that are being manufactured, do in-person QC, do in-person factory audits. That is something that AI, of course, cannot replicate or cannot replace as such. But all of the operations part, of your sourcing and finding products, those are the things that AI can sort of help you with and make the overall process very efficient. Okay. So why use AI? As I said, first of all, it's not about replacing humans. There are certain aspects that humans will need to do, but AI is basically augmenting our capabilities. It's helping us improve efficiencies in certain aspects of the process. Sourcing in many ways, has a lot of data. So AI also helps turn all of this data into actionable intelligence. And of course, that is one of the, key benefits of AI, that it can use or can process very large amounts of data. Also, you can shift from reactive problem solving to proactive opportunity seizing. And we'll go into specific examples of this. But, for example, there are tools that will tell you what products are becoming more popular these days in overseas markets, in specific markets where you're selling, or even on marketplaces. So, with the help of AI tools, you can actually be aware of these opportunities and these trends ahead of time and then act accordingly. Work smarter, not harder, so you can reduce costs, mitigate risks, and discover new opportunities faster than your competitors. Of course, your competitors are also using AI. Like, everybody is using AI these days. Who is not, right? But that's basically the key, that you're basically reducing your cost by whether it's reduced focus on repetitive or helping AI with repetitive tasks, or whether it's by reducing manpower for specific tasks. Okay, so let's talk about AI in the entire sourcing lifecycle. And it starts, first of all, with product discovery and validation, then supplier identification and vetting, documentation, negotiation and logistics, and finally QC and inspections. So what I'll do is, on subsequent slides, I'm going to give you some suggestions and ideas of how you can use AI in each of these steps, and how we are using AI as well for some of these aspects. And of course, people who are listening, you might have other ideas too, to feel free to pitch in and add your own suggestions in the chat as well. Also, I want to emphasize over here that I'm going to be talking more about the free tools. There are a lot of paid tools and platforms, but we want to get things done for free and for as less cost as possible. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is ChatGPT. Whether you have the free version or maybe the paid version. The paid version is slightly better, of course. There are less limitations, but it's mostly ChatGPT or other DeepSeek or other AIs that you can use. There are some tools that I'm going to mention, but by and large, this is something that you can do with ChatGPT. Okay, so first of all, product discovery and validation. Now, market trend analysis, there are some tools that you can use out there, like Trend Hunter, Exploding Topics, that actually use AI to tell you what trends are emerging. So this is a screenshot that I've taken from Exploding Topics, and you see that Shilajit honey is actually exploding. It's a new product that's gaining a lot of momentum. So there are some features that are available for free with such tools, and of course there are paid versions as well. So depending on where your business is, you can use such tools to identify products that are really becoming very popular in overseas markets. So that's one. And even with ChatGPT, you can actually ask ChatGPT to, scan social media, TikTok, Instagram, Google Trends, e-commerce sites, and kind of predict rising trends before they peak or before they become popular. Okay. Also, competitor analysis, and I saw the topics of the other topics that some of the speakers are going to be covering. So there's a lot of discussion about analyzing competitor listings, reviews, and pricing strategies. But this is something that you can definitely do using AI. Analyze all of the all your competitors' product listings and what they are doing, and then base your strategies on all of that. All of that is not very easy to do manually. So, having AI, even a simple spreadsheet, like if you, for example, download all of the reviews of a specific product and ask AI to process all of the reviews and give you some suggestions on what can be improved in the product. That is something like very simple that can be done very easily as well. Okay, also predictive demand forecasting. So this I find very interesting as well. And there are a lot of different layers to demand forecasting. And again, using ChatGPT, a simple example, you can ask ChatGPT, how many products should you source if you're planning to sell a specific product category on Amazon US or wherever you're planning to sell the product. And so, ChatGPT would do a detailed analysis of what the demand is like, what the competition is like, what the FBA fee is. And based on all of that, it will give you an answer. So for example, over here, I put in this prompt. I want to sell wooden chopping boards on Amazon US. Can you tell me how many units of chopping boards I should order to begin? Oops. And then the answer is for your first Amazon US order, I recommend 200 to 300 wooden chopping boards. This gives you enough stock to test demand and optimize your listings or ads without, overcommitting. So something as basic as this can easily be done using ChatGPT. Also, once you start selling, it's also very important to know when to reorder and how much to reorder. So all of that is also very easily, you can do that through ChatGPT as well. You plug in all of your data into ChatGPT and spreadsheets, and then that is something that you can do as well. Also, price optimization. So what is the price that you should sell the product at? What is the price that you should source the product at? And what is the pricing? What is the profit margins that you can expect in a specific product? Now, we find that this is not always very accurate. Like we often ask ChatGPT, like, what price what price should we source the product at? But we find that ChatGPT is not very accurate, especially when it comes to India. Maybe because there's not a lot of data available, online on prices of products that are made in India. For example, Alibaba has a lot of prices, for China-made products, but there's limited data available for India-made products, right? So we found that it's not very accurate in terms of the pricing, but it just gives you kind of a benchmark of what to expect in terms of sourcing prices. Okay, so the second aspect is supplier identification and vetting. And here we're still kind of struggling, and we haven't really found the right kind of I don't think ChatGPT or the free tools are really accurate in terms of finding the right supplier. So there's still a lot of manual review that is required for any of the lists that ChatGPT gives you. So for example, if you put in a prompt like find me the best manufacturers of so and so product from India, what usually happens is that you'll get a lot of supplier directories that are listed by ChatGPT. So for example, it'll say, okay, go to Trade India and go to Exporters India and go to India Mart, for example, to find some of these suppliers. However, not all of these websites are trustworthy. And just to sidetrack a bit, so if you're sourcing from India, India Mart will often come up in ChatGPT as well as in search results. However, India Mart is a very domestic focused website. It's not really export focused. Most of the companies there are trading companies, they're not manufacturers, and they're actually selling in the domestic market. So if you are looking for a manufacturer, exporter, India Mart is not a good website to source from. There are good manufacturers there, but you've got to do a lot of vetting. You've got to do a lot of searching, and got to make sure that you've got the right supplier over there. So be very wary of that. There are other websites like Exporters India, for example. Again, not a very comprehensive website. A lot of the companies there are trading companies. Even Alibaba, a lot of the Indian companies on Alibaba are trading companies. So just be aware of that. When you are sourcing from India, a lot of the manufacturers are not, on these platforms. They're mostly trading companies. Also, you've got to, repeatedly ask ChatGPT, okay, I want manufacturers only that have their own factories. You can also try to find suppliers that export specific products based on HS codes, based on specific HS codes. And that data, the freely available data, can also be, provided to you by ChatGPT. Of course, there are paid tools, but in case you don't have, you don't want to pay for those kinds of tools, ChatGPT will be able to find at least some results based on HS codes. So that's something else that you could do. Find me manufacturers of certain products based on these HS codes. So at least you know that these companies have exported that specific product. Okay, summarize supplier websites, product catalogs, or certifications to quickly assess credibility. Now, let's say you found a lot of different suppliers. You can, put them all in a spreadsheet and then just upload all of that information to ChatGPT or whatever information you have about every supplier, whether it's PDFs or catalogs or websites, and then ask ChatGPT to create like a spreadsheet where all of these suppliers can be compared. And then ChatGPT would also assess their credibility, and it will help you choose a supplier based on your specific requirements. So you can, for example, say that I'm looking for a supplier that has, so-and-so certifications. So shortlist suppliers, with these criteria in mind. So that, but again, a lot of the information that suppliers post on their websites is not up to date, or they might not post any information at all, about specific aspects. So you've got to do, again, manual review of all of the suppliers that ChatGPT also suggests you. And I mean, we found some great suppliers for specific products just using simple searches in ChatGPT, but many times we just go round and round and round in circles and we're not able to find good suppliers. Also, you can ask ChatGPT to spot red flags in supplier documents, missing ISO numbers, mismatched addresses, fake certificates. Yes, that happens sometimes as well. You can also ask ChatGPT to look at news reports to see if there's any negative reporting about that company, if there are any, scam kind of reports about that company as well. Also generate checklists for supplier audits. So if you have found a supplier and you want to maybe send a company or send a inspection company or a sourcing agency to the factory to ask them to do a factory audit, you can generate a checklist template using ChatGPT, and of course specify the specific product that you are sourcing so that the template can be customized. Okay. Now, this is something that we have been using ChatGPT for, very frequently. So consolidating supplier databases at trade shows. Now, of course, as a sourcing agency, we are attending a lot of different trade shows in India. And as, Amazon e-commerce sellers, we're also attending trade shows. And what usually happens is when we visit a trade show, we gather all of these business cards, all of these name cards, and then we come back home and we forget about them. The name cards just get lost. Some sellers are very organized. They will even, organize the cards in a notebook. For example, they'll staple the cards in the notebook and then take handwritten notes in the notebook about each supplier. But then again, we come back home, the notebook gets lost, and we're like, okay, what do we do with all of these suppliers? And then when we have the need of a specific product, we're like searching for our diaries. But what we found is that we can actually use ChatGPT to very easily create a database of our suppliers, of all of the companies that we visited at trade shows. And if you check out my in-depth step-by-step presentation in the members only section, I've gone into a lot of detail into how we actually do this ourselves and what we have learned over the last few months and how we have really perfected the process. So basically, in a nutshell, the process is that we scan all of the business cards and we, including our handwritten notes. So we take photos of the page in the diary that has the business card plus our handwritten notes, and then we upload all of them to ChatGPT, and then we ask ChatGPT to create like a spreadsheet. We have a template already, and then all of the information is populated into a template. And really, we actually had one person doing all of this, as like 20-30% of their job was actually just typing in our notes into spreadsheets when we visited trade shows. And using ChatGPT, using this process, that that person is free to do other stuff, and all of this manual data entry stuff is done by ChatGPT in minutes, whereas it used to take maybe a couple of days for this person to like manually type in all of the addresses and details from the name cards. So this, I think, is something that has really added a lot of value to our business, and I'm sure it will really help you guys as well. Definitely check out the in-depth step-by-step presentation. It's like I've given you the template to use, also the prompts to use, what to avoid, what are the pitfalls, and I'm sure it'll be very useful, especially because Canton Fair and other sourcing fairs are coming up in October, and so this is going to be really, really useful for you guys. Okay, next, documentation and compliance. So, of course, there's a lot of templates and documents that are used for when you're sourcing. So purchase order, pro forma invoices, import-export contracts, supplier agreements, NDA contracts, spec sheets, thank you inserts, like any sort of document that you can imagine that you'll be using, for during the sourcing process can actually be done through ChatGPT, can be automated. And once you create the template, then of course you can, keep reusing it again and again. You can also ask ChatGPT to populate the template for specific products. For example, spec sheets. Once you have a template, whenever there's a new product that you need to send an RFQ for, then just ask ChatGPT to, maybe put the link of the product or basic information, and then ask ChatGPT to put it in that template. But again, of course, you have to check the information again and again, because we found that sometimes robots can make errors as well. Then some of the other things that you can use ChatGPT for help identify the right HS code based on the product description. This is really important because the HS code really determines how much tariff you'll pay on specific products. Also, customs regulations for specific items. Now, this was always very difficult to find out because there's so many different certifications. Some are mandatory, some are optional. For some, you need actual test reports. And for some, you don't really need test reports like from a lab. So this is something that we found ChatGPT to be very useful for, to actually tell us what certifications are required for which specific country. Okay, negotiation. Now, this is very tricky because negotiation is actually a human skill. But, if you use ChatGPT with your human skill set to negotiate, I think it's very powerful. So you can always ask ChatGPT to frame some negotiation strategies for you based on whatever information you know about the specific product, of course, the competitors, and how to put your points to the supplier so that you don't sound very, rude. You're still polite, but you're not too aggressive, but at the same time, you're firm. So I think that is very important. You can ask ChatGPT to write emails and suggest strategies. However, I would always caution that negotiation is it's a very delicate matter. So don't make it seem like ChatGPT has written your emails. That is a very big put off for suppliers. When they know that you're just like sending off a template to them that is written by ChatGPT, it's very, very putting off. So make sure that you have that human element whenever you have any communication with suppliers. even for all of the, even if you're sending like RFQs, for example, or even the spec sheets, I've had some people who have sent me templates. I mean, they've used ChatGPT to create the template, and they still have like ChatGPT notes in the body of the text, like, insert product name here, things like that. So you've got to be very careful, because at the end of the day, sourcing, I mean, you are dealing with a person on the other side of the computer or the phone, right? So make sure that you have that human touch when you are talking to suppliers, or even when you're using ChatGPT. That human element should not be missed out. Okay. Logistics. Now, this is a big one, and we found that this has really helped us quite a bit. So ChatGPT can help you suggest carton sizes, also weights for the cartons that minimize the dimensional weight, also based on Amazon FBA requirements for specific products. You can also calculate whether splitting the shipments, air plus sea, is cheaper, and how that will overall affect your supply chains. However, just be very careful when you're getting landed costs from ChatGPT, because we found that sometimes the freight costs are not very accurate. Again, we're talking about India. Maybe China is different because there's a lot of information available online. But for India, we found that the actual freight costs are not 100% accurate. And so it's always advisable to get specific and accurate costs from the freight forwarders, so that they can give you up-to-date costs. But then if you're just trying to get like a benchmark of the actual product cost plus freight, duties, and FBA fees, then of course ChatGPT is really good. You can also compare multiple forwarder quotes, and make sure that the quotes that have been given by different forwarders are an apples to apples comparison, because sometimes one forwarder might have missed certain aspects, or missed certain things, like, for example, the port charges, and there's a lot of different charges. So if you compare quotes from different forwarders, that helps you determine whether or not the quotes are an apples to apples comparison as well. Okay, QC and inspections. So this is also really helpful. Before you place an order with a supplier, make sure that you add your quality control criteria in the product spec sheet that you're sending to the supplier. So you have your purchase order that includes all of the details of the number of products that you're sourcing, and product details, etc. The product specifications sheet that has all of the product specs, and then the quality control criteria, which is what you will give to your inspector, who will actually do the inspection right before shipment. So, and this is a very important point that many sellers just miss out. When after the product has finished production, they will tell the supplier that, oh, we're going to check the product based on all of these criteria. And this supplier is like, hey, you didn't tell me this. This is something that, I didn't really focus on this because I didn't know that it was important to you. So make sure that you have your quality control criteria in the spec sheet before placing the order. And of course, get ideas from ChatGPT, but don't go overboard. Like, you have to, again, manually review all of the criteria and make sure that they are logical and implementable. Like, a lot of times, what the criteria that ChatGPT suggests are not relevant, or maybe they're not necessary. So again, manual review is really important. Create inspection checklists for specific products. You can generate AQL sampling plans. So again, your inspector would be doing this. Like, if you're hiring a third-party inspection company or a sourcing agency, they will actually generate the sampling plan. However, you can do that as well, even though you're not a very technical person or experts in QC and inspection. This is something that you can do so that you have an idea of how many pieces should be checked based on the order size. Draft inspection report templates to share with sourcing agencies or a third-party inspection company. And again, many of the inspection companies have their own templates, but if you want your own template, then there's something that you can generate by ChatGPT as well. Analyze inspection report and suggest ways to resolve issues. So sometimes, inspection companies or sourcing agencies would give like a 30-page inspection report. And of course, they do have their own summaries as well. But especially a third-party inspection company, they will not give their suggestions. Their job is just to do the QC of the product and tell you what exactly they saw at the factory. And then it's up to you to decide what you want to do with their inspection report. A sourcing agency is slightly different. They will actually help you resolve the issue as well, because quality control is their responsibility. But regardless, what you can do is ask ChatGPT to review, analyze the inspection report, and suggest ways to resolve the issues if there are any. Okay, so those were some tips on how you can use ChatGPT and AI in, throughout the sourcing process in the various steps. How to start? Again, we want to keep things low cost. Of course, there are, fancy tools and all out there, but you don't need to use those tools. Just use ChatGPT to start. Take it one step at a time. Also, a lot of the sourcing platforms these days have, new AI features, so you could, of course, leverage those as well. Again, the trend analysis and social listening tools, they're free versions of those, so use those. If a tool, of course, makes sense for you, then you can use the paid version. AI needs data. So start organizing your supplier list, your product data, shipment histories, like whatever information you have about your sourcing, make sure that it is in, either spreadsheets or in, different files in one place, so that you can feed that data into ChatGPT and then help, get it to analyze and give you suggestions on how to order, how to, maybe how to improve the product. There are a lot of different options available, but you've got to have the data, because AI, of course, needs data. Okay, what are some of the pitfalls? Garbage in, garbage out. So AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. And I talk about this in my presentation that I've got in the members area as well. You have to make sure that you go to a trade show with a plan. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know what information you need, if you don't know how to capture that information in a logical way, then ChatGPT cannot do anything at all. So you have to go with that mindset to the trade show that I'm going to feed this data to ChatGPT and capture the data in a specific format that then ChatGPT can easily digest. Okay, AI is a tool for decision support, not a replacement for human judgment and relationship building. So again, I've mentioned this before, sourcing is all about that human exchange and relationships. Of course, specifically in Asia, I'm sure if you're sourcing from China or India, the relationships are really, really important. So make sure that you're still building that relationship, and don't give that impression that you're using AI to draft your emails, to draft your your purchase orders and things. I mean, purchase orders are still okay, but your emails and your RFQs, just make sure that it's not very evident. Okay, on the ground representatives are necessary. Whether it's a sourcing agency, whether it's a third-party QC company, you've got to do inspections, you've got to do factory audits. Even though AI might confirm specific information about a supplier, even though AI might vet the supplier for you really, really well, you still need to make sure that the supplier, the information that the supplier is giving you, or the information that ChatGPT is giving you, is accurate by sending somebody to the factory or getting videos or photos, because AI is, again, getting its information from online, from the web. However, not a lot of Indian suppliers update their information on their websites. So that is the pitfall over here. It's probably different from China, because there's Alibaba, there's a lot of data available. But for India, there is not a lot of data available online for a lot of these suppliers. Okay, for very small volume sourcing, the ROI on expensive AI tools might not be immediate. So use ChatGPT and other free tools. This I mentioned previously as well. We don't want to be spending a lot. I mean, with sourcing, we want to make sure that we are as profitable as possible. Save costs, save costs, save costs. Okay, so that was the presentation. I really just want to quickly talk about what we do. So India Sourcing Network is a sourcing agency, and we help you find factories in India for your specific private label products, and we manage the entire sourcing process for you. So we have a done-for-you sourcing service where we help identify and vet the right factory for your product. We help with product development. If you have any new products that you want to develop, we negotiate prices, payment terms, and other aspects with the factory. We also help develop samples, packaging, labeling, QC, in-person inspections. We also facilitate shipping and guide you on what the best ways are to ship products. We communicate with suppliers, and then we, of course, do the overall management of your sourcing projects. So we're like you're like outsourcing your sourcing to us. Like you outsource your PPC to maybe a PPC agency. We are sort of your sourcing agency your agency for outsourcing your sourcing. You can get more information about us on our website, indiasourcing.net. If you go to indiasourcing.net/done-for-u, this is where you get more information about our Done For You service. And you can also contact us at info@indiasourcing.net. And of course, get more information at indiasourcing.net.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Megla. Very interesting presentation. A lot of different information about how to use AI for different sourcing related tasks and steps, but also you kind of shared a little bit about how it's to source from India. And we already have one question about it as well. But before we go to the questions, I would like to introduce the VIP package. Megla, you mentioned a few times as well during your presentation. So it's something that is available for the just one second, I'm gonna add it here as well so you can see. So we have a VIP package available for all of SellerFest Online participants. What we did is that we asked 20 experts to record additional advanced sessions, which are only available for you if you buy this VIP package. The link is in the video description below. And we also included 2 very awesome bonuses for you, which are, I think, already a great reason why to get it. And I would like to introduce them briefly. So the first bonus is that you are going to get the recordings from the European Seller Conference 2024. It's the biggest physical conference Orange Klik is organizing every year. So you're going to have the access to all speaker sessions. And of course, hopefully you will then come to the next event in 2026. And the second bonus material comes from Brandon Young. It's an exclusive masterclass which will be available for you about product discovery, validation, and AI design. It consists over 30 different lessons, and usually it's worth around $500. So again, I think it's a really great deal to educate yourself further and be away or get ahead of your competition. As I said, there are 20 other advanced sessions as well as one from Megla. So Megla, can you give us like a brief comment? What did you record for us for the VIP session?
Yes, definitely. So I basically recorded a step-by-step guide on how you can use ChatGPT to basically capture all of the information from a trade show and then create like a really neat database that you can refer to at any time, for contacting suppliers. So a supplier database, I think, is extremely important for anybody. I mean, especially for a sourcing agency like us, having a vetted supplier database is basically the backbone of our business. But even if you are, an Amazon seller, you have your own brand, having this database is extremely important because you can then, just you have all the information on your fingertips, right? Excuse me. It's a step-by-step process. And this is the exact process that we use ourselves to create our database. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful to everybody, especially because Canton Fair is coming up in October. Then the Delhi Fair is coming up. So all the sourcing fairs are coming up these days, in October, basically. And so the timing is very good for this specific presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now, Megla, we're ready to address some questions we received. So first question is about IndiaMart, because you mentioned it in your presentation. So could you explain briefly what it is and what would be the first steps of sellers if they would like to start using it?
So I would say avoid IndiaMart as much as possible, because IndiaMart is it's a really big platform, but it's mostly focused on the domestic market. And the problem is that most of the companies are not export experienced. A lot of them are trading companies that sell in the domestic market. Now, when you're sourcing from India, you have to make sure that you're sourcing from an export experienced supplier who is aware of the certifications that are required in the export markets, who has products that cater to export markets in terms of the design, the colors, the functions, etc. See, India is a big country. There are 1.4 billion people, right? So there's a lot of demand for products domestically. And so a lot of manufacturers, produce products only for the domestic market. But if you're exporting, there's a separate set of suppliers. Of course, some suppliers do both domestic and exports, but you have to make sure that they are exporters. And India Mart has mostly domestic companies, a lot of trading companies. Even the prices are given in Indian rupees, right? So that there's always a risk. Instead, you can use Alibaba, Global Sources. Those are the two main export-focused supplier directories. Even though most of the suppliers on these two platforms are from China, there are Indian suppliers as well for products that India manufactures. You can also visit trade shows like Canton Fair has an India pavilion, for example. There's the Delhi Fair that's held in October and April. Over here in Delhi, there's a lot of home products, furnishings at that fair. In fact, we do a sourcing trip also to that fair. So exhibitions is a great way to find suppliers as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Very good question. And again, the link to India Sourcing Network is also down in the video description, so you can learn more after we finish this session. And we have one more question for you, Megla. So what are the big advantages over China suppliers if somebody opts in for using Indian suppliers instead?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So it really depends on the product category. First of all, India specializes in certain product categories, not everything. So for example, if you're sourcing anything related to textiles, specifically cotton textiles, then India is really a great place for that, whether it's apparel, home furnishings, towels, kitchen textiles, anything cotton or organic cotton is really good with India. Because India is one of the largest growers of cotton in the world. And, there are in fact, more GOTS certified factories in India than there are in China. So that's one big category. You'll find good variety of products. You'll find competitive prices, in many cases better than China as well for cotton products. The second point is that labor costs are much lower in India. So any product that requires manual labor, for example, stitching, like apparel, like bags, backpacks, certain pet products like pet beds, for example, any product that requires more manual work typically could be cheaper in India. I'm not saying that all products would be cheaper in India, because there are certain products where China has, produces those products at scale. Or maybe China really has a lot of different materials available, so the prices might be better there. However, if the product has a manual component, then it's likely to be cheaper in India for sure. Mm-hmm. If you're doing anything eco-friendly, then India is a great option, because a lot of the products that are manufactured here are made from natural materials. That's one of India's specialties. So whether it's wood, metal, ceramic, glass, leather, any of those natural materials, you'll find really good suppliers in India. And lastly, for certain products, you'll get low MOQs. So for example, all of these products that are made from natural materials, these are, a lot of these products are handmade or semi-handmade. And so the MOQs are lower because they don't require any molds. They are not made on a big machine. And, so if you're just starting out, for example, it can be very advantageous because you can source smaller quantities. You can even source, like 100, 150, 200 pieces of a specific item and test different SKUs to see which one will really sell.
That's a very interesting point for sure, I think. And also there are more videos about how to source from India with Megla on our Orange Klik YouTube channel. But yes. Megla, thank you so much for joining us today, for providing with all the information you did. And I hope to see you soon on our channel.
Yes, thank you so much, Lisette, for inviting me.
And now I would recommend to watch another video where you will learn how to source Amazon FBA products from different destinations, including Vietnam, USA, Turkey, and Europe.